Okay, before we start, does everybody understand the concept of waves of immigration? Yes, no, holding lost. Okay. In Toronto, I know that we have some out-of-towners here. The West basically saw the first and second waves of immigration of Ukrainians at the end of the 1800s and at the beginning of the 1900s. The third wave basically dominated Toronto from the 1950s until 1953. And then the fourth wave, and then there was a small, actually, uncategorized wave from Poland, actually, from Zakarzonia, from Poland in the early 80s, that is also considered part of the third wave, believe it or not. And there's the fourth wave, which happened after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. So we have 4 waves of immigration. Thank you. Yeah, 4 waves of immigration, and that. 4 waves of immigration, and the basic complaint in Toronto is that there is a rozryv. There's a difference between the third and the fourth wave. We don't understand each other. They're not Ukrainian. They're totally ignorant. Like, there's not a lot of communication between the 2 waves. Now, the more educated we get, and the more contact we have with Ukraine, especially since 2005, since the Orange Revolution, there has been a bit more of a rapprochement, but not at the same extent that people would like. So if we can have a survey of who's here that counts themselves as part of the third wave. So descendants of the third wave. Your grandparents came in 1950-ish. Yeah, lots, right? Who is here from the fourth wave? Yes, so actually, so you were actually part of count 3.5, by the way. You're the 3.5 wave. Your parents are the 3.5 wave. That's okay. So who's 4 again? How many? 1, 2? Good. Who else is here? Okay, 3, about 5. Okay. So we have this difference, right? There is a difference. And so I'd like to go through a kind of like an action plan, because there is an issue, and the issue, what is the agenda? You can look at the agenda. The issue is that there's a lack of fourth wave involvement in Ukrainian clubs. Now, so there's an issue, right? So that's basically the issue that we just discussed, and I'm not going to let you read it because it's basically the same thing. And despite the fact that if you look at the numbers of the fourth wave, they're one of the largest. They're a big wave. Okay, they're bigger than I would categorize them bigger as the third wave at this point. They're very big. But despite the fact that they're the biggest wave, their youth are not getting involved in a lot of our clubs, a lot of organizations. That's not the same for financial institutions. They're very part of the Ukrainian credit union system, but they're not getting involved in Ukrainska Shkola, they're not getting involved in SUSK as much. And there's a question as to why. Right? So the goal is to incorporate, right? We're all Ukrainians, we want to incorporate, we want to make sure that the community is still strong and viable. Because what happens after any wave of immigration is that actually Professor Asayev, who you've met upstairs, the old gentleman that was speaking to us up in the document center, he's actually a very famous professor, by the way. If you want to talk to him about anything regarding sociology and ethnicity, he's the guy to talk to. Basically, his theory is that after the third wave, a third generation of any wave of immigration, ethnic retention goes, okay? People start forgetting their ethnicity after the third wave, okay? The third generation, sorry. So, how we fix it? We have a goal, we want to integrate, how we fix it, right? The integration is basically understanding the context. We have to understand where the fourth wave comes from, and we have to understand where the third wave comes from. And when you understand the two, you understand that the goals and the socialization processes are completely different, right? So, the third wave doesn't understand the fourth wave, and the fourth wave doesn't understand the third wave because we don't understand our histories. We don't understand the sociological, the economic, the political situations from which we come, right, respectively, right? So if I can get somebody from the third wave, give me a definition of a Ukrainian in the third wave context. Anybody, throw it out there, go for it. Yeah, me, which means what? For a third waver, what is being Ukrainian? Yes.
Baba and Tito came over with all the other Babas and Titos.
Right.
And they bought a house for $1,000 in Blue West Village.
Blue West Village, location, yes.
Yeah, and Baba makes hits.
Right, food.
Canada Packers. The language.
Language.
Yeah, to speak Ukrainian. And we I'll go to Plus.
What about like Plus? Yeah, Plus. Yeah. Okay. Organizations.
And
What is the goal? What is the thing that to be Ukrainian? What is it absolutely necessary to do if you're Ukrainian for a third waiver?
Perpetuate Ukraine.
Speak. Is there a goal? Is there a political goal for third waivers? Before the liberation of Ukraine, free Ukraine, right?
yeah, true.
Okay. So this is the composition of all the four waves. If you look, the first wave was coming from the Ruthenians, the Galician, Bukovians. The second wave was also very small after the First World War. Also coming from Western Ukraine mostly. Third wave was pretty big, but not big enough. But you look at the concentrations, right? Where did they go? First two waves went west. Last three waves stayed here. So we generally have a conflict in Toronto, right? Because we have two waves of immigration clashing, right? You have two generations, lots of Ukrainians in Toronto, lots, okay? And they're concentrated in the Golden Horseshoe, concentrated from, now I'm not saying this, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying this because, this is absolute truth. No, there were third waivers that went out west. There were third waivers, that there were second waivers that stayed in Toronto. I'm not saying these are absolutes, but these are general concentrations, right? So, Toronto becomes the capital of third and fourth wave immigration, but we don't get along so well, yeah? Right? And does everybody, before I start this, does everybody know the terms that one has for the other? It was the beginning of the presentation, if you can read Ukrainian that quick. Nowe pribuli, right? Nowe pribuli are the fourth wave, and who are the third wave? Kanadole, right? What do you know, right? So the reason why the reason why we have this clash is because the third wave came into Toronto and completely dominated it. Came in with 35,000 Ukrainians, all uber patriotic, all trained militarily, mostly, worked in labor camps, hated what? What do they hate?
Russians.
Soviets,
Poles.
the Poles. Okay, you're doing something separate. Yeah. But this is serious. This is not a joke. This is actually the characteristics of the third wave, right? If you look at the way that the third wave worked, is that it was handpicked as a homogeneous wave. 35,000 of the same type of people coming into a city, right? Like 35,000 people, all the same goal. Maybe not different way of approaching that goal. You had Melnikivsi, Bandarivsi, Plastune. You had divisions internally within that wave, but you had the same basic goal, right? You liberate Ukraine, those commie bastards, right? That was what your Bob and Dee would probably say, right? If you're a third waiver, you're handpicked as a third waiver. You were handpicked from a DP camp, which means that Pan Panchak, who if you go look upstairs, there are pictures of him. He was a man that went around and made sure that you had the criteria to come to Canada, right? You were the type of Ukrainian Canada was looking for, okay? And basically, this is what he was looking for. You had to be right of center or center. You can't be leftist. Canada hated communists at this point. Cold War's on, okay? You had Ukrainian speaking because they wanted the Ukrainians in Canada wanted to reinvigorate their community, right? So they wanted Ukrainian speakers. They all had to develop a sense of nationalism to be able to hold on to that kind of ethnic retention. They were ex-soldiers. That's not a criteria, but that's what generally happened because you were in a DD camp, so you're generally a soldier or an ex-slave, labor slave, right? And they're highly organized. These people organized themselves in camps. And it was like a community within itself. These camps were running for 3, 4, 5 years. They had schools, they had, like bands, they had dance groups. They were really organized. These are not like people sitting in these tents and just waiting around. They had barake, they had organizational life, right?